event once again, and I thank everybody and their participation and your commitment with the conservation of the Amazonia. As it says, now some years now, maybe thousands of years, let's always remember that we're not just blacksmiths of our ancestors' lands, but what we are is we're being lent this land from our children, from our grandchildren, and all of the future generations. We must give them what they deserve. So just to finish this, we hope that this seminar is very successful and that we wish everybody a happy San Pedro and San Pablo tomorrow, which are the saints that protect. As a Roman Catholic, I believe I have it correct, but those are the ones that protect the fishermen and others as well. So thank you very much. It's an honor to be here with you today. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. John McNamara, for this presentation. I also want to take advantage and thank everybody who's following us on the social networks, and to tell them that the commitment of USAID and who develops the project Conserving Together and the project ECHOS has precisely a lot to do with what gathers us and demands our conservation of the Amazonia. I wish to propose that we see closely and take a really close look at these projects. And Dr. McNamara has defined the context, and I believe that today it's worth taking a very close look at each of these proposals. And we will begin with a video of a project Conserving Together from WCS after the video. And I'd like to give the word to Ms. Daniela Pogliani, Subdirector of Conserving Together of WCS. Thank you very much. Go ahead with the images. With the ends to protect the Amazonia persists, which is also a reserve of great sweet water, fresh water. But do you know what's happening in the Amazonian basin? The overexploitation of natural resources through fauna and wildlife trafficking threatens the biodiversity of this great ecosystem and the people that live in it. Environmental crimes in the Amazonia are intensifying. The loss of biodiversity and the climatic change for future pandemics, and to also be able to face these challenges. Collaboration regionally among strategic partners, Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil, and Peru, chains of value that are sustainable, protection of fundamental rights, and the defense of territories and lands for the indigenous people and communities, just as is also leadership, generating positive change in nature and contributing to the well-being and security of Amazonian people is a crucial task that will benefit the world. Conserving Together. USAID.
Daniela Pogliani, por favor, adelante.
Daniela Pogliani, please go ahead. Good morning to everybody. Dear Mr. Jack McNamara, Prime Minister of the Embassy of North America here in Peru, Antonino Leleo, Mr. Representative of the United Nations Against Drug and Crimes, estimated dear Jorge Rios, Chief of Environmental Office of the United Nations Against Drugs and Crime, dear guests and participants, virtual participants. I give everybody a warm welcome on behalf of the Wildlife Conservation Society and also Ms. Mariana Marese, Director of the project Conserving Together, that accompanies us today virtually. We want to welcome USAID and the people of the United States for depositing their trust in us for leading this ambitious project. WCS with their allies and IPAM, COIABI, Pro Naturaleza, Internews, and RARE, from diverse perspectives and multiple experiences, collaborate for ensuring conserving together, responding to the following questions. What's the role that we have or that we can play as social society, civil society, for conserving and against environmental crimes, for ensuring everybody's right, especially for Amazonian people? How can we achieve an impact on the basin? And what can we do as citizens? Within the frame of the project, we strengthen capacities for diverse factors of civil society for being able to lead proactively efforts for conserving Amazonia and for preventing environmental crimes. And how do we do this? Reinforcing networks for regional calibration against frontiers and borders in Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. Strengthening and emphasizing amongst companies and indigenous people and value chains that are sustainable, strengthening management and defense of lands and indigenous territories and of local communities for conservation of forests and Amazonian rivers. Strengthening active citizenship from responsible consumption, documentation, initiation of science, citizen science, volunteering, voting informed, and also citizen vigilance. What are our objectives? A larger and better collaboration regionally through at least 10 networks or communities that are cross borders, which generates and share knowledge that the private sector add and become an ally for creating legal value chains that can be sustainable, with 15 companies implementing actions to prevent environmental crimes and the development of 10 sustainable value chains amongst the 4 countries. That indigenous people account for tools and knowledge for being able to protect their territories and improving management of over 7 million hectares in areas that are biologically significant. That citizenship activate demanding transparent management of the resources and decisions made on the Amazonia, and that as a citizen, we all question where it comes from and how it's produced, what we consume. Conservation of Amazonia is a task that belongs to all of us. So in this sense, we ask everybody to sum their ideas, their proposals, their energy for conserving together. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anila. Thank you very much to Daniela Pogliani for the presentation for Conserving Together. We are going to know next the following project Echoes from UNODC, and I propose to use the same dynamic. We're going to use a video that will tell us about the same project, and then we will hear the words from Mr. Jorge Rios, Chief of the Environmental Team for UNODC. Please go ahead with the images. ECO's Regional Conservation. Transnational crimes for conservation appear in illicit business, causing irreparable damage to the environment. Through this illegal exploitation, natural resources degrade biodiversity within the region, making vulnerable all the ecosystems. In a response to the situation, USAID, to better their cooperation and efforts, contribute to the preservation. ECOS covers activities in over 6 countries in South America: Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Guyana, Peru, and Suriname. Wildlife, forest, fishing, mining. ECOS is implemented by UNODC through the Program of World Leadership and Change, whose focus on the crime scene is to prevent, identify, investigate, and enforce the law against environmental crimes. ECOS is framed in a regional program. Through ECOS, UNODC and USAID reaffirm their commitment of working and intensifying interinstitutionally. Please, go ahead. Thank you very much, Chief Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Minister Counsel John McNamara from the U.S., Mr. Thomas Rhodes, Regional Coordinator from USAID, and my friend from Daniela Pogliani, Subdirector of the project Conserving Together, which I believe is a great name because it describes exactly what we're doing in the WCS. My dear colleagues, Antonino Leo, a representative from UNODC in Ecuador and in Peru, and also Miss Michelle Jennings, who isn't here today with us, Mrs. Michelle Jennings, and a cordial greeting. And we began 2 years ago with Michelle the talks about these topics that brought us here today, and especially also Dr. Maria Lafema, the director, Busetti, Bujilan, who we had a great meeting with yesterday. I was promised, or they made me promise 3 times, that I will remain within the time designated. So I'm going to use the great interpretation that we have in the back, and I'm going to change into English, and I'm going to speak no longer than 3 minutes. Okay, well, welcome. Thank you very much for being here with us on this launch of these 2 very important projects that are very important. And I would also like to thank the U.S. government, USAID, for having what I believe and for following the logic of supporting projects that support conservation, because in UNODC, we have so many crimes and topics that it can't be just a delictive topic and criminal that has to be reported, but all of the so now I'm going to change.
And complex project, not because of the technical assistance. I think the technical assistance part that the videos try to describe is actually pretty straightforward. It's something that UNODC does in many different crime types, whether it's drugs, trafficking of arms, trafficking of human beings. It's really not the technical assistance design or implementation. What it is, it's the political commitment, el compromiso político de los estados. ¿Sabes? La priorización, the making wildlife or environmental crimes a priority, and that's something that we simply have not seen across the board in Latin America. We're slowly seeing it in other parts of the world, but Latin America is somewhat behind. But we applaud the efforts of the Peruvian government to make wildlife trafficking a criminal offense, and that's, I think, a fantastic start. In addition, the crimes that we're going to address, minería ilegal, tal ilegal, tráfico ilícito de fauna y flora, y la pesca, are very complex in itself, but there's a lot of special interests behind some of these crimes. And also what's very important to understand is that there's legal supply chains in the timber, and in the fisheries, and in the mining sectors. So that even makes it more complex. When you talk about trafficking of wildlife, there really isn't a legal supply chain. For the most part, it's illegal outside of species of CITES. But member states really need to make these crimes serious, and that's something that can only happen through political commitment. Al mismo tiempo, at the same time, the importance of creating strong legal frameworks is critical, as is the cooperation between la Fiscalía and la Policía. We need to ensure that the cooperation to bring strong cases before the court really is happening in the member states. And you'll see that a lot of the work that ECHO's plans to do really is to strengthen the capacity of different criminal justice actors, whether it's la policía, la fiscalía, la UIF, aduanas, etc. Creo que it's so important that we strengthen the capacity of each of those sectors. Because for the most part, in the past, outside of the specialized prosecution on environment, they haven't really been working a lot on environmental crimes because it hasn't really been a priority. And I think that's something that we need to change. Now, the complex issues related to mining are, and we'll see throughout the lifespan of the project, we'll be understanding the supply chains. Supply chains for minerals are different depending on the minerals. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of special interest. The private sector needs to be involved. Probably the same goes for illegal mining, but it's not. Illegal logging. It's not only illegal logging. It's the illegal deforestation. La deforestación ilegal es algo que todos tenemos que mejor entender y realmente tener herramientas para.
We all have to face and have tools to
that's where a lot of corruption, a lot of economic crimes happen, and that's the reason why we need to work very closely with the banking sector, with the financial intelligence units, et cetera. Now, the other side is illegal, not so much IUU fishing, but more on the crimes in the fisheries sector. So understanding the supply chain, the models of how someone gets a license to fish and then lands the fish and it gets to the consumer. There's so many points in that chain that are vulnerable to corruption and economic crime. And that's really, that generates an enormous amount of profit. So what we're talking about here is serious transnational organized crime. It's not a small fisherman. It's not the community member who cuts the tree down, or the individual poacher, or the folks who work in the mines. Really, these are complex, well-prepared, well-financed structures that manage to move huge amounts of product, from Peru to a transit country to a destination point. The same modality as we find in other drugs,
igual que
in other crime
drogas
types,
y otros tipos de crímenes, particularmente drogas y armas. Y yo me hago la pregunta, y le hago la misma pregunta a
why
todos.
can't we
¿Por qué no
utilize the
podemos utilizar
the same political commitment, the same tools that we do for those crimes, for these crimes? Yeah. And many will say, well, it's only a tree, or it's only a monkey, or it's only a cactus. But that's not the point. The point is we're destroying amazing biodiversity landscapes, as you saw in these videos. We're destroying huge amounts of ecosystems. Yeah. And all of this ultimately has an impact on climate. So we need to take the issue outside of only look at it as loss of a tree or an animal or a species of fish. It really is looking at the broader picture. How is all of this linked to the broader issue of climate change? And I think as we move through the process of the program, the project, us, working with
nosotros
WCS
trabajar
and other
WCS
NGOs,
y otros ONGs,
vamos a poder
vamos a
entender
ver
realmente el
realmente
impacto que estos delitos tienen
delitos
sobre el tema
tienen
del
sobre
cambio climático.
el
Y creo que eso es
tema
algo
del cambio
importante que
climático,
no
y esto es algo
podemos,
que no podemos
perder durante el proceso del programa.
proceso del programa.
Ahora, esto quiero terminar resaltando la importancia de trabajar, ¿no?, de manera mano a mano. Por muchos años las agencias han trabajado en silos, no se han comunicado, han competido. Por eso yo quisiera agradecer una vez más al Estado, a los Estados Unidos, al USAID, por realmente juntarnos el tema conservación, administración, manejo responsable de recursos naturales con el tema delictivo. ¿Ya? Pero no solo es las agencias de cooperación que tienen que trabajar en esta manera. El gobierno, los estados tienen que darnos lineamientos, tienen que asegurar que no estamos duplicando, tienen que poner también sus ideas en la mesa de qué piensan ellos que necesitan. Ahora, nosotros vamos a llevar a cabo unos estudios a nivel país, que son estudios detallados, ¿no? Uno es el marco de indicadores, que algunos ya lo conocen. El otro es el toolkit, ¿no? Conocer en el estado actual qué está pasando, cuáles son los riesgos, los desafíos, las oportunidades, las fortalezas que enfrenta el Estado. Y en base a esa información vamos a elaborar unas fichas, unas hojas de ruta, unos planes de trabajo en base a la evidencia. Y eso es no solo para UNODC, en este caso el Estado peruano o los otros 5 países que forman parte del ECOS. Porque solo con evidencia podemos utilizar el financiamiento, la inversión de manera positiva. No tenemos el lujo que teníamos hace muchos años, no en el tema ambiental, sino en otros temas, que los donantes simplemente ponían mucho dinero y ya, eso era la cosa. Ahora estamos con tantos desafíos a nivel mundial, ¿no?, la agenda política, las cosas que están pasando, que ahorita el financiamiento se va a limitar. Entonces nosotros tenemos que asegurar que invertimos en acciones que realmente fortalezcan a las autoridades del Estado, a las entes del Estado, pero al mismo tiempo tengan una sostenibilidad. Y creo que es algo muy importante del proyecto ECOS. Ya ve, hubiera seguido hablando 10 minutos más, entonces voy a parar acá, pero simplemente quisiera agradecer una vez más a todos ustedes. Van a ser socios claves para implementar este proyecto. En Perú va a ser las aduanas, la policía, la OIF, la FEMA, y obviamente los colegas de WCS y USAID, ¿ya? Entonces, por favor, cuando llegue una convocatoria para un evento, una capacitación, o que nos puedan prestar su conocimiento, su apoyo, les ruego que por favor tomen la atención de ese pedido y que se junten con nosotros, porque perder lo que bien se mostró acá en los videos sería una lástima, ¿no? Pero es un país súper mega diverso, bello, así como todo el continente, ¿no?, de Sudamérica. Entonces, quisiera agradecer una vez más, sobre todo a todos los colegas del Estado peruano, a la cooperación y al gobierno de Estados Unidos, especialmente a través de USAID, por depositar la confianza en nosotros para llevar a cabo estas actividades para hacer frente a los delitos ambientales. Muchísimas gracias y éxito en el taller. Gracias.
Muchas gracias a Jorge.
Thank you very much, Jorge Rios, for this presentation. Next, we are going to listen to Gregorio Díaz Mirabal. Mr. Díaz Mirabal is a general coordinator of COICA. COICA is the coordinating agency of the indigenous organizations of the Amazonian basin. He wasn't able to be here with us today, but he sent us a video for sharing his message. Thank you. Go ahead. Sisters and brothers, a great greeting from the basin to everybody, or allied organizations that are in the battle and the resistance for the defense and protection of the Amazonian basin. Us as a community always battle for defending our Amazonian jungle, and it's for this that today we congratulate for the initiations and of the ECHOS project and Conserving Together that are imposed by USAID and that contribute to protection of biodiversity and facing environmental crimes in the Amazonia. It's an emergency. More actions that can protect 80% of our jungle, and also we hope to have results by 2025. Those are the words from Gregorio Diaz Mirabal. From the indigenous coordinators of the Amazonian Basin, which also have something to do with relation to these projects this morning. Very well. Reaching the end of this phase of this morning of gathering, once again, I want to thank everybody who's followed us in the social networks and who have connected with us and were able to see the videos and presentations. But I want to welcome everybody to an exchange of experiences on the terrace who's in front of this auditorium, where we're going to be able to conversate, exchange ideas, and also speak about something and see all of the information that all of these projects propose us. And at the same time also thank Mr. John McNamara and Daniela Bognani, Jorge Rios, and also Antonio De Leo, who accompanies us with an image in the beginning of, to accompany us with, for a photograph in the beginning of the hall where there's a large banner, and please to accompany us with a photo where we can leave this image planted this morning. Let's go to the workshop. Thank you everybody for being here on this phase.